Hello, this is Thomas J. Linneman, author of Social Statistics, Managing Data, Conducting Analyses, Presenting Results. This is the From Idea to Presentation video that accompanies one of the examples from Chapter 4. What I'm going to do in these From Idea to Presentation videos is walk you through the series of analyses that I did to come up with the example that's in the textbook. After I do that, I'm going to show you what presenting these results would look like if you were asked to do an in-person presentation. The variable I'm going to concentrate on for this example is a variable called afraid of, which is part of a new module of questions that the GSS asked in 2018. So I'm going to start looking at this variable by just doing a simple pie graph of the variable. And that's all I'm going to do. So there's my pie graph, and looks a little bare, so I'm going to double click on it, and one thing I'm going to do is add percentages. There's the percentages. Now it looks a little busy, so I'm going to take those decimal points away. And there we go. So now we have a really good idea that a majority of the respondents say that this never happens to them, that people never act in their daily lives, never act as if they are afraid of the respondent. However, there are some people for whom this happens quite frequently, or at least occasionally. One variable I'm going to use to investigate this variation is race, because race definitely affects the level of everyday harassment that people experience, as we know. So next, I'm going to run a crosstab, and I'm going to use race to explain the variation in afraid of. So that means, that tells me where my variables are going to go. So afraid of is my dependent variable, and that goes in the rows box. And then I'm going to use a dichotomous race variable, race white black, and that goes in the columns box. After we put our variables in, we have two more things we need to do, as you learned in Chapter 4. Well, Chapter 2 and then Chapter 4. In Chapter 2, you learned that you need to have column percentages in your cells. And in Chapter 4, you learned about the chi-square test. That's right there. So that's everything we need to do. And we see that race definitely affects feeling that people are afraid of the respondent. A large percentage of blacks say that this happens to them almost every day. In fact, the most frequent categories, these are all higher for blacks than they are for whites. And whites, 59% of them say that this never happens to them, whereas just under 50% of blacks say that. And according to the chi-square test, we do have a significant difference. So we can say that in the population, blacks and whites differ. Next, I want to add one more variable into the mix, and I'm going to bring gender in. So before I run a crosstab of this, I'm going to go back to the pie graph options, and I'm going to keep that variable right there. But now I'm going to add in the race variable, but also the sex variable. into this rows and columns box. I'm going to put the race variable in the rows, and I'm going to put the sex variable in the columns. When I click OK, you will see what this does. This gives me what we call a paneled pie, and we see the results for white males, white females, black males, and black females. We see that the group that really sticks out is the black males. They are the ones who are experiencing this quite a bit. So black males look quite different. Their pie graph looks quite different from white males. Black females also look somewhat different from white females, but now what we're going to do is we're going to run this same set of relationships, but we're going to run it with a crosstab so that we can see the chi-square results. So back to our crosstab box we go. And all I'm going to do is add that sex variable to the layers box. This allows us to elaborate our crosstab. So click OK. And we see that black men, males, black, are much more likely than white men to say that they experience this being afraid of almost every day. Females, the differences aren't quite as large. So therefore, when we look down to the chi-square results, we have a highly significant result for the male crosstab. So we can say that in the population, white men and black men differ on this dependent variable. We do not achieve statistical significance for the female crosstab. So we cannot say that in the population, black females differ from white females. So those are all the analyses I want to do. Now I'm going to switch over to PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through the same set of results, but in more of a presentation kind of form. Okay, so I thought a good title, catchy title, was Are People Afraid of You? That's provocative. Investigating the effects of race and gender. Typically we think of, when we think about discrimination and we think about harassment, we think of them within the realm of employment and possibly income. But the 2018 General Social Survey asked a variety of questions about Americans' experiences with what I call everyday harassment, harassment that occurs within the context of people's daily lives. One of these questions read, in your day-to-day life, how often have any of the following things happened to you? People act as if they are afraid of you. Most people responded never, but some experience this quite a lot. As you might imagine, one question we would want to ask is, does race affect one's experiences of this type of everyday harassment? And according to this crosstab, it does. The percentages for the most frequently, where this everyday harassment is occurring frequently, almost every day or at least once a week or a few times a month, are higher for the black respondents than they are for the white respondents. These differences are large enough that, according to the chi-square test, we can say that in the population, blacks and whites differ. Now, though, we're going to bring gender into the mix. In this plotted pie graph, we see that it's really black males who differ from the other groups. They are experiencing this kind of harassment a lot more frequently than the other groups are. So the white males, white females, and black females are pretty much equal in saying that this, only 3 or 4% of them say that this They experience this almost every day. However, this percentage is 11% for Black males. According to chi-square tests, the differences among the women are not big enough to claim statistical significance. We cannot say that in the population, Black women differ significantly from white women. Among the men, though, because of that very large difference between Black men and white men, we can say that in the population, these two groups differ significantly. Therefore, we have engaged in the process of elaboration. We identified a relationship first between race and this type of everyday harassment, but then we elaborated the relationship to show that this relationship holds for men, but not for women in terms of statistical significance. And as we saw, on a regular basis, Black men perceive that they are feared by others. So that is the end of this From Idea to Presentation video.